I watched her hand hover over the glass, smile fixed, eyes cold. Something dropped into my wife's drink. No one else noticed. Music loud, laughter everywhere. I felt my stomach turn, so I did the only thing I could. When she turned away, I swapped the glasses. And 10 minutes later, the wrong person started to collapse. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Your support helps these stories reach more people. My name is Robert Caldwell. I'm 64 years old, and we were spending Christmas at my son's house in Madison, Wisconsin. I thought the worst thing that night would be awkward small talk. I was wrong. That Christmas party almost ended my wife's life. Christmas had always been simple for us. Too simple, some would say. My wife, Eleanor, believed Christmas wasn't about impressing anyone. No matching sweaters, no themed cocktails, just family, food, and warmth. That's why she looked so out of place standing in my son's living room that night, surrounded by glittering decorations, loud music, and people she barely knew. My son, Mark, had insisted. "Dad, it's just a party," he said. "Claire wants to host." Claire, my daughter-in-law. She'd been married to Mark for 3 years, and in all that time, I never felt comfortable around her. She was polite, too polite. The kind of person who smiled without using her eyes, who hugged you quickly, like it was a task to check off. Eleanor tried with her. God knows she tried. She'd compliment Claire's cooking, ask about her job, offer to help clean. Claire always declined. "Relax," she'd say brightly. But that word, guest, always felt deliberate, like a reminder we didn't fully belong. The party was already loud when we arrived. Music thumped through the walls. Laughter spilled out into the cold December air. Inside, the house was packed. Neighbors, co-workers, people I didn't recognize. Claire floated through it all like a hostess in a magazine spread. Red dress, perfect hair, a glass of something sparkling in her hand. I squeezed her hand. "We'll eat, smile, and leave early," I said. She smiled back. That smile still haunts me. Claire offered drinks almost immediately. She moved fast, weaving between people, her voice bright and musical. "Wine? Cocktails?" She handed Eleanor a tall glass filled with something pale gold. Ice clinked softly as she set it in her hand. Eleanor hesitated. "Oh, I probably shouldn't," she said. Claire laughed, a sharp, quick sound. "It's barely anything," she said. Eleanor looked at me. I shrugged. "One sip," I said. Claire smiled wider. "Perfect," she said, and moved on. I didn't think anything of it at first. Why would I? It was Christmas, a house full of people, family. I watched Eleanor take a small sip. She made a face. "That's strong," she murmured. Claire was across the room now, talking animatedly to someone near the kitchen. I noticed then, for the first time, she kept glancing back at us. Not casually, intentionally, like she was checking something. A few minutes later, I went to grab us some food. When I came back, I saw it. Claire had returned to our side. Her back was to me. Her body angled just enough to block Eleanor's view. Eleanor was laughing at something Mark said. Distracted. Claire held Eleanor's glass. I stopped walking. Time slowed in a way I can't properly explain. I saw Claire's hand tilt slightly, saw her fingers pinch something small, a movement so subtle no one else would have noticed. Something dropped into the drink. No splash, no sound, just a quick stir with a straw. My heart slammed against my ribs. I felt cold all at once. "Hey," I said sharply. Claire jumped. She turned, startled, just for a fraction of a second. Then the smile snapped back into place. "Oh, Robert," she said. "I was just—" I didn't answer. I looked at the glass in her hand, then at Eleanor, then back at Claire. My mouth felt dry. I asked. The music was loud, too loud. Claire laughed again. "Oh my God," she said. "You scared me. It's just more ice." Eleanor frowned. "I didn't say—" I cut her off gently. "It's fine," I said. Claire hesitated. Just a beat too long. Then she shrugged. "Sure," she said lightly. She handed the glass to Eleanor and walked away. I stared at the drink. The ice looked normal, the liquid unchanged. Nothing floating, nothing obvious. But my instincts, the ones that had kept me alive for over 6 decades, were screaming. "Don't drink that," I whispered. Eleanor blinked. "What?" "I'll explain later," I said. She sighed. Maybe I was. But paranoia doesn't make your hands shake like that. I glanced around. Claire was at the bar now, pouring herself a drink. Her back was turned. The moment stretched. And then I did it. I reached out, took Eleanor's glass, and swapped it with the one sitting untouched on the side table behind us. Water. Plain water. I placed the water in Eleanor's hand. "Drink this," I said quietly. She looked confused, but obeyed. My heart pounded. 10 minutes passed. Nothing happened. I started to think, maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was ice. Maybe it was nothing. Then I heard a sharp cough across the room. Claire. She had just taken a long sip of her drink. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her face drained of color. She staggered. Someone laughed, thinking she was joking. Then she gagged, hard. The glass shattered on the floor. The music stopped. Claire collapsed to her knees, and the room erupted into chaos. People rushed toward her. Mark shouted her name. Someone yelled for water. Another person screamed to call an ambulance. I didn't move. I couldn't. Because Claire wasn't choking. She was convulsing, her body jerking violently, hands clawing at the carpet. Foam gathered at the corners of her mouth. Eleanor grabbed my arm. "Oh my God," she whispered. I stared at Claire, at the woman who'd smiled at us all night, and felt a terrifying certainty settle in my chest. Whatever she put in that drink was never meant for herself. Mark knelt beside his wife, frantic. He cried. She couldn't. Her eyes rolled back. Her breathing turned shallow. Sirens wailed in the distance, and that's when Claire's eyes locked onto mine. Just for a second. No confusion, no fear, only rage. And something else. Recognition. She knew. She knew I'd switched the glasses. And in that moment, I understood something far worse than the poison itself. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Claire had come to that party with a plan, and my wife was the target. The ambulance lights painted the living room red and blue. People stood frozen, cups half raised, faces pale. Christmas music still played faintly from a speaker in the corner. Cheerful, wrong, obscene. Paramedics pushed through the crowd. They knelt beside Claire, voices calm, movements practiced. No response. They checked her pulse, her pupils, her breathing. One of them looked up sharply. He asked. Mark's voice cracked. "Ingest what? She just had a drink." The paramedic cut him off. Silence. Everyone looked at the shattered glass on the floor, at the pale liquid soaking into the carpet, at me. I felt Eleanor's fingers tighten around my arm. "She didn't drink anything unusual," Eleanor said quickly. "Just punch." The paramedic frowned. "This isn't alcohol," he said. My heart dropped. They loaded Claire onto the stretcher, oxygen mask hissing, hands working fast. Mark followed, shaking. "Please," he kept saying. Before they wheeled her out, Claire's hand twitched. Her eyes fluttered open. And again, just for a second. She looked straight at me. Her lips moved. I leaned closer, instinctively. She whispered one word. The hospital. We spent Christmas night in a hospital waiting room. White walls, plastic chairs, the smell of antiseptic and burned coffee. Mark paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair. Eleanor sat beside me, silent. I could feel her thoughts racing. I asked myself the same questions, over and over. Finally, a doctor approached, middle-aged, tired eyes. He asked. Mark jumped up. The doctor nodded. "She's stable, sedated." Mark froze. The doctor hesitated. Something dissolved, fast-acting. My stomach turned. I asked. The doctor looked at me. "It's commonly used to cause disorientation, loss of motor control." I swallowed. "A date rape drug," Eleanor whispered. The doctor didn't correct her. Mark's face went white. He asked, the doctor shook his head, and walked away. The questions a police officer arrived shortly after. young, serious. He asked everyone who'd been at the party to stay, to talk. We were taken one by one into a small room. When it was my turn, the officer closed the door gently. Mr. I hesitated. I thought of Eleanor, of Mark. I chose my words carefully. The officer looked up sharply. Silence. I met his eyes. He didn't react, didn't interrupt. He asked, and another pause. I exhaled. The officer leaned back. He studied me for a long moment, then he nodded. The words hit me like a punch, saved her life. I hadn't even fully accepted that she'd been in danger. He asked. I shook my head. No, I said. The first crack. Crack. Mark didn't speak to me afterward. He sat in the waiting room, staring at the floor. Eleanor tried to comfort him. He pulled away. I don't understand, he said quietly. She loved you. I didn't answer, because love doesn't poison people. Later that night, while Eleanor slept in a chair beside me, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long moment, then answered. A woman's voice, low, tight. My blood went cold. I demanded. A soft laugh. The call ended. I sat there shaking, heart pounding. Claire wasn't acting alone. The discovery, the next morning, Eleanor insisted we go home. I don't feel safe here, she said. Too many questions. Back at the house, the Christmas decorations felt obscene. Lights still blinking. Tree still glowing. I went straight to the kitchen. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. I opened the trash, rummaged through cups, napkins, plates, and then I saw it. A small, clear plastic wrapper. Empty. Torn. The label partially smudged, but legible. My hands shook as I held it up. Eleanor leaned closer. I read it aloud. Her knees buckled. That's what they use in hospitals, she whispered. And on victims, I said. I bagged it, took photos. And then I noticed something else. A note stuck to the inside of the pantry door. Folded, hidden. I opened it. My blood ran cold. The twist. That afternoon, Mark came over. Alone. He looked hollow. I need to ask you something, he said. I nodded. He asked, Did you threaten her? Eleanor stood up. No, she said sharply. She tried. Mark swallowed. My heart sank. He looked at me. She said, You've been controlling, judgmental. That's a lie, I said immediately. The room spun. She's framing you, Eleanor said. Mark's eyes filled with tears. That's when I realized the real danger. Claire wasn't just poisoning drinks. She was poisoning stories. And if she woke up and spoke again, I might be the one who ended up in handcuffs. Claire woke up 2 days later. That alone felt wrong. I had spent 48 hours preparing myself for every possible outcome, including the one where she never opened her eyes again. But she did. And when she did, she didn't cry. She didn't panic. She didn't ask what happened. She asked one question. The nurse hesitated. Your husband is in the cafeteria, she said gently. Claire nodded weakly. Yes, she whispered. And the police. My stomach dropped. They didn't let us in the room. Mark went first. Eleanor and I waited in the hallway, the hum of machines buzzing behind the walls. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, the door opened. 2 police officers stepped out. And behind them, Mark. His face was shattered. Dad, he said hoarsely. My heart slammed. I didn't do anything, I said. He shook his head. She says you threatened her. That's not true, Eleanor snapped. Mark ran a hand down his face. My vision blurred, I demanded. Mark didn't answer, because that's the problem with lies. They don't need logic. They just need doubt. Claire told them everything, a story polished and perfect. She said I'd never accepted her, that I constantly criticized her. She claimed I'd followed her into the kitchen earlier that night. Then she said I swapped the drinks while she wasn't looking. That man scares me, she told the officers. I could hear her through the wall, her voice soft, fragile, convincing. I felt sick. They finally allowed me in. Claire lay in the hospital bed, pale and small, IVs in her arms, band on her wrist. She looked vulnerable, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. "Robert," she said weakly. I stood frozen. I asked quietly. Her lip trembled. "I almost died," she whispered. "No," I said. The nurse stiffened. The officers leaned in. Claire gasped. She cried. I stepped closer. "Because I saw you," I said. Claire's eyes flickered, just for a second. "Enough." "That's not true," she whispered. "Then explain the wrapper," I said. "The midazolam." Silence. One officer raised an eyebrow. Claire swallowed. I laughed. A harsh, broken sound. She started crying. Real tears this time. "You're trying to ruin my marriage," she sobbed. Mark flinched. "Claire," he said softly. She looked at him, long, hard, and then she said something that chilled me. That was the crack, the thing she didn't mean to say. The officer asked. Claire's breathing quickened. "She's rich," she said suddenly. "Eleanor, she has investments, savings." Eleanor gasped. "Those are joint accounts," she said. Claire smiled faintly. The room went silent. I understood then. Claire hadn't just wanted Eleanor sick. She wanted Eleanor gone. If Eleanor died suddenly, at a Christmas party, no one would question it. Heart issues, alcohol reaction, but Mark would inherit everything eventually, and Claire would control it. "You planned this," I said. Claire closed her eyes. Too late. One officer stepped out, returned minutes later with a man in a lab coat. "Forensics," he said. He turned to Claire. The room spun, meaning she had prepared that glass specially. The officer continued. Claire broke, not crying, snapping. She screamed. "She looked down on me, always judging." Eleanor stepped forward. "I was trying to protect my son," she said calmly. Claire laughed hysterically. Mark sank into a chair. His hands shook. He whispered. Claire looked at him. Because for the first time, she couldn't lie. "Because I deserved more," she said coldly. The officers stepped forward. They cuffed her gently. She didn't resist. As they led her away, she turned and looked at me. No hatred now, only something close to admiration. "You were watching," she said. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Mark didn't speak to anyone for hours. Then he came to us. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Eleanor hugged him. I stood there, exhausted. Because stopping the poison had been the easy part. What came next, living with the truth, would be harder. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that settles after something breaks and never quite fits back the same way. Christmas lights still blinked in the living room, cycling through red and green like nothing had happened. Like a woman hadn't almost died here. Like a family hadn't shattered. Eleanor sat at the dining table, hands wrapped around a mug of untouched tea. She hadn't spoken in nearly an hour. I watched her breathe, slow, careful, as if even that felt fragile now. "I should have trusted you," she said finally. Her voice didn't accuse. It ached. "You did," I said quietly. She nodded. I had no answer for that, because sometimes family is where the danger hides best. The news didn't take long. Local woman arrested after poisoning incident at holiday party. They didn't use names at first, but people always figure it out. Neighbors stopped waving. Phones stopped ringing. Some people avoided us entirely. Others came with casseroles and whispers. Mark didn't come by for days. When he finally did, he looked older, smaller, like the ground beneath him had shifted, and he hadn't found his footing yet. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. Eleanor reached for his hand. "You don't," she said gently. He nodded, eyes wet. "I loved her," he whispered. That sentence broke something in me, because loving someone who never truly existed is its own kind of grief. Claire pleaded not guilty. Of course she did. Her lawyer argued it was a misunderstanding, a mixing error, an accident blown out of proportion. But evidence doesn't care about stories. The wrapper, the fingerprints, the toxicology report, and my testimony. Standing in that courtroom felt heavier than anything I'd done before. Claire didn't look at me. She stared straight ahead, jaw tight, expression unreadable. When it was my turn, the prosecutor asked me a simple question. I took a breath. Because I saw intent, I said. The jury didn't deliberate long. Attempted poisoning, aggravated assault, intent to cause serious bodily harm. The sentence came down months later. 12 years. No early parole. When the judge spoke the final words, Claire finally turned toward me. Our eyes met. She didn't hate me. She didn't beg. She smiled. And that scared me more than anything else. After the trial, Mark asked to talk. Just him and me. We sat on the porch, the winter sun low and pale. I ignored things, he said quietly. He listed them. Her obsession with control, her resentment toward Eleanor. I thought love meant compromise, he said. I nodded. We all do, I said. He swallowed. She wanted kids, he said suddenly, not to love them. I felt a cold wave pass through me. I put a hand on his shoulder. But you didn't, I said. He broke then, cried like a child, and I held him, because that's what fathers do when everything else fails. Eleanor struggled more than she let on. The nightmares came first. She'd wake gasping, hands shaking, asking if she'd drunk anything. She stopped accepting drinks at gatherings, then stopped going altogether. I feel stupid, she said one night. I sat beside her. Trust isn't stupidity, I said. She looked at me. You were, I said. It took time. Therapy helped. Routine helped. But what helped most was reclaiming the things Claire tried to take. Christmas the next year was small, just the three of us. No punch, no music, but there was warmth, real warmth, and safety. It came a year later, a plain envelope. No return address, I knew before opening it. Eleanor watched me carefully. She asked. I shook my head. No, I said. The handwriting was neat, controlled, Claire's. You won. I didn't expect that. I thought fear would make you hesitate. It didn't. I don't regret wanting more. I regret underestimating you. No apology, no remorse. I folded the letter and burned it in the fireplace. Eleanor watched the flames. She asked. I nodded. Months later, Mark made a decision. He sold the house, moved closer to us, started over. I want a life that doesn't feel like a performance, he said. Eleanor smiled. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Mark turned to me. Dad, he said. I shook my head. No, I said. He frowned. That's the same thing, he said. And maybe it was. I still think about that moment. The glass in Claire's hand. The second where instinct spoke louder than reason. Where fear didn't freeze me. It focused me. People ask what I would have done if I'd been wrong, if I'd imagined it, if I'd ruined Christmas for nothing. Here's the truth. I would rather ruin 1,000 parties than attend one funeral. And if watching quietly means saving someone you love, then watching is not passive, it's protection. That night, I didn't swap a drink. I swapped destinies. And because of that, my wife is alive, my son has a future, and the woman who tried to destroy us will never sit at our table again.